Hey everyone, it's Stephanie again, and you are tuned in to the review of Married at First Sight, Season 6, Episode 15. So, I have something special for you guys tonight. Many of you have asked my husband's opinion about certain things because you know I talk between him and yelling at the TV. There's a lot going on every Tuesday nights. And also, I had a couple of people say it would be fun for him to do a review with me. So, I decided to surprise you guys with him. So, here he goes.
Hi, everybody. So the people been wanting me? You never told me that the people was asking about it.
Not that many people. Okay. Anyways.
People want me on the show. All right, here I am.
So, yeah, we thought it would be fun to do this review together, especially since next week is the last episode, and we want to also give our predictions. So this week, and babe, you can kind of jump in as you please. This week, we have a lot going on. We have the couples separately, and we also have the couples, separating, doing guys' night and girls' night. I know some of you guys are like half and half with that. Some people love all that support. Some people think it's a distraction. I think it has served them well in this season. They've never done it before. If I could title this, I don't know what the title of this episode was, but I would title it Domino Effect, because I saw from the beginning most of the relationships, 2/3, start out decent at the beginning of the episode, and then they all kind of fell on top of each other based on, the situation going on with John and Molly. So we can kind of kick it off with John and Molly.
Ooh, that's a heck of a couple to start it off with.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. What do you think, babe?
Well, you already know how I feel, but they don't. So, I'll put it this way. John is giving it his all, and I will say that there's probably more to the story than what you see. However, one of the things that's so true about a lot of people think that women may be sensitive, right? A sensitive nature, but men are we're extremely sensitive when it comes to our ego, right? And so if you tell a man or even a woman, anybody, that they're disgusting, and in the uncut she says, "Oh well, because you were acting disgusting," there's no excuse. You don't tell somebody that you're married to or even in a relationship with that they're disgusting, calling them a monster. Like, right. I've never heard anybody call somebody a monster unless they were like a pedophile or something like that. Right. That's a very strong word. And then when you touch me, you make my skin crawl or something like that. So, she tried to clean it up, and then I think there's just a lack of accountability, on maybe both of their parts, but definitely on Molly's part of hurting someone's feeling and not fighting fair, and I think that sucks.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Molly and John is we have seen them show up consistently on the surface. And yes, there's editing. Maybe there's, we saw early on in this season where John was not his best self. So we're not saying that he's perfect, but what we have seen is the complete lack of accountability and the complete lack of depth from Molly. And still in this episode, it's still the same rhetoric. It's still like how this situation was done to her. And regardless of the editing, it doesn't really matter because it was said. You can't edit something that was not there or not said. So she is, if you noticed, they don't even spend time together this episode. She says she reaches out to him. He doesn't. They both have decided that they're going to part ways. So Molly and John this episode kind of spend time with friends. They spend time with the guys and the girls. And then they also spend time with family, kind of letting them know what's going on in their lives and what they're about to do. There's still no real accountability. When Molly gets together with the girls for girls' night, she talks about, it was so it was like over their heads, basically what the real issue was. She talked about still some of the attraction stuff and that she's really in it and she's wanting it. She says 150% she's not in it. But she doesn't go into the major blowout that really caused the fight, because that would require her to be accountable, and she doesn't want to do that. So that irritated me. Talking with her sister irritated me. Everybody she talked to, it was still very surface, and it still didn't go into the issue. So Molly, for me, seems to be the greater aggressor here. Not to say John's perfect, but if we're just looking at it from what we're being presented, it seems that he has, he let go of his apartment. He gave away his cat. I mean, he lost his job for this. He's willing to do whatever. And he's still somewhat optimistic, saying, they matched two really good people together. It's just, the people in it weren't necessarily meshing well, but it wasn't for a lack of a commonality that would make for a great marriage. So clearly.
Yeah. I mean, and another thing with that, with Molly, and we're just using these couples as examples because let's be honest, what we care about is our own relationships in life and the most. And if you think about it, one of the things that I want to just say that I noticed with Molly is that she didn't realize that she was pushing him away. Mm-hmm. And she's like, well, I'm not, ready. It's a difference between not being ready and not holding somebody's hand or showing them that you're interested or mm-hmm. telling them that I'm not attracted to you and being cold, being cold and being
don't say it.
being a strong witch, does not mean you're in it, right? And once you push a person so far, male or female, and they go over that ledge, they're done. So she's like, well, at least he didn't respond. No response to my text. It makes him seem like he's a bad guy. Well, you kind of pushed him to that point. And then, we can be victors or we can be victims, but we cannot be both. You can't choose both. She wants to play this victim role. And it's like, it frustrates me when I hear her talking about, you're doing this to hurt me. Hurt me? I'm recording you. And you guys are on a reality show. Yeah. Oh, man. I don't even want to say what I want to say. Like, really? I mean, he recorded okay, but you're saying it's about you. And I think that makes a difficult relationship when everything is about you and you don't take any accountability of how it got there. And even on the uncut, she tries to say, well, it was more to the conversation. So what? You called a human being disgusting. And you called him a monster. Own up and at least say I was wrong. And she didn't say... Even when they called her out, if you haven't watched the uncut, they called her out and they said, the therapist was like, or the expert was basically like, is there anything that you regret? And she's like, no, you sugarcoated. So she comes back and says, oh, I'm sugarcoating. I was saying I'm being positive and not positive outlook. No, she was saying I asked you about the event. You didn't even bring up the argument. And it was just wrong. And to be talking to another man while you're with your husband and you're not having a conversation with him, and I'm sure John, he probably acted up a little bit. I could imagine.
Right.
But to just not have any accountability, it kind of makes my skin crawl, and it's tough to watch.
And the reality is, how you do some things is how you do all things. Y'all, I'm hot, so I'm fanning myself.
That's why I'm drinking this guava juice, because it's a little hot. It is. But we turn the air on, it gets loud, and you won't be able to hear us.
So how you do some things is how you do all things. It's fine. So I think that she needs to carry this with her everywhere she goes, or the change of who she is. She can't just play this victim role because it's going to show up in other relationships. It's not just this. It's not just John. If we were to dive into her history or anybody's history, we would find repeating patterns that create who we have been and who we'll continue to be unless we do things differently. So our prediction, clearly, they're not going to be together anyways, but our prediction is clearly that they're not going to stay together. There was a piece of me as I was watching this that was wondering, because Molly was kind of wishy-washy at one point about, faking it when she was with girls' night. There's a part of me that's thinking, hey, is one of them gonna switch, their desire? But then I didn't want to get caught up in the whole TV aspect of it. So clearly they're not going to be together, and I think that's for the best.
Yeah, I do too. I think a lot of you think she's already with somebody. Like, let's put it out there. Like, yeah. She seems like she's occupied, or like, I'm not going to touch him. It's kind of, and I'm not sitting here to cause gossip or rumors, but it just seems a little weird that it just doesn't seem like she ever really went more than surface. And it's cool, and I say this all the time. It's easy to be easy when it's easy, and what I mean by that is easy to have fun when you're having a great time, when you're on a roller coaster. But when you're really in a roller coaster of life, that's when your maturity shows up. That's when you have to go deeper. And they talked about some of the things that were deep, like their last week. That was when they first started opening up. And that's how you get, vulnerable with somebody, is being vulnerable. And if you don't, you're never going to go deeper than the surface. And that's just like courting and dating. That doesn't right. go well in marriage. You have to go deeper than the surface. So,
right. Yeah. So Molly and John, done. Don't want to be callous, but it is what it is. So let's move on to Ryan and Jackie. Ryan and Jackie really, I don't know what to think of them.
Yeah.
It's fine. I don't know what to think of them. Ryan and Jackie, I feel I'm just going to throw out the prediction early, and then we'll talk about them. I feel that they will stay together, but I don't necessarily think that they will last. And I feel like really they're both in the same space where they're like very unsure about why they even want to really be together, or if they think that they're, you know, that great of a match long term. But I think they both kind of want to just feel it out. You know, Jackie says several times that, hey, we're going to, you know, we already decided that we're going to kind of feel it out and see beyond this 6 weeks. So it's about like crossing the finish line, I think, for the two of them. I don't necessarily think that they are so in love, or they're like, you know what, this is working really well. And I think it's beyond these fights that, you know, Ryan mentioned, very valid, that they've been arguing a lot, which we have seen, but I think it's beyond that. I don't necessarily think that he's ready for marriage right now. I think he's way too self-absorbed. I think that Jackie, although she's a sweetheart, I think that her recent trauma of her ex leaving is still very fresh. And I think the fact that she's trying to hold on to something that really isn't the best for her is a problem as well. So even though she might be more marriage material, there's still some work to do so that she doesn't get into something that she gives so much of herself to that she loses herself. So I think that they're going to choose to stay together, but I would not be surprised if we see in the blog soon that it doesn't work out. And it's not my hope for them, but I'm not really feeling it between them. What do you think?
You know, this was kind of tough because I thought that they weren't going to be together. But then at the end, when he bought her the gift, it's either like a parting gift, or I want to keep it together. So right? I mean, you really can't tell with him, you know, because he's like kind of straight with it. And in the fact that he could care less either way, or at least him saying that, is just very interesting. And then he still has his apartment, I believe. And
Ryan speaks in circles. He's very wishy-washy.
yeah, I don't know with him. I don't see the long term. I'm not sure. I could see him. I could put it this way: whatever happens, I believe it's going to happen based on him. I think the tide is going to sway whatever way he's feeling that day. I mean, which it is sucks if he gave her that gift and he knows he's not going to be with her. That's a bold move.
I think he'll do it, but I think, you know, when we watch the guys get together and talk about what's going on with them, at first, you know, the spotlight is on John, and then it becomes Ryan, who initially said, oh, we had a great time in New York, and then we circle back and he doesn't know if he wants to be in it, and he really could care less either way. How did that happen? And while I was watching it, I was taking into account the editing, because I'll bring up a point in a little bit, but the editing, you know, still doesn't affect the fact that it was said, you know, and to me, I would rather him say and be consistent with being on the fence and being unsure because there are great things about her and some things that are a little off-putting, versus one day being in it, the next day not being in it, one moment being very sure, the next moment not being very sure. And it's okay to be confused, but he lacks consistency to me, and he lacks genuity. You know, he'll say what sounds good. You know, this whole episode, he's kind of like, I could take it or leave it. But then he gives her this beautiful gift. It's like,
yeah, it's so weird.
What
it's
are you
like,
doing?
It's weird. But, you know, and everybody will tell you, well, I won't say everybody. If you talk to a lot of couples, they're going to tell you, if you say, what's the key to marriage? They're going to say communication is going to be in the top 3. If you say 3 things, but that's not just communication. It's effective communication. And what you're seeing in both of these relationships are ineffective communication. Number one, you know, you have to understand that as a married couple, you're going to have differences. You're not going to agree on everything. And he was like, well, we get into it once a week. Man, I mean, like, you could disagree every day. I mean, you could disagree about what time we want to eat. I mean, who's going to drive. Little stuff. It happens. Like, but you have to learn how to listen to somebody that disagrees with you. Have the conversation. Don't yell, curse. You know, we have rules. There's no cursing when we disagree. There's no yelling. There's no putting each other down, belittling. Oh, that's why you're going to be this. No, always. No, ever. No, you always do this. And these types of things are starting to go to war. But you're living with the enemy. You can't live with the person that you're going to war with every day, because you're just dry. What'll happen? You start swinging. Then you start using knives. You start using guns. You start using cannons. And the D word of divorce is one of the largest cannons you can ever use. So if she's using that word with Ryan, and I did agree with him on this point. A lot of people like to disagree with him, but you do not use that. Even if you're feeling like, oh, I'm done with this. Even if you're feeling that way, you need to go have a chill pill and go take a walk.
Yep.
because those are certain things that you can say that just creates very thin ice. Nobody wants to be in a house that's eggshells. You know, you want to be on solid ground, and that's happening with both of them. You know, saying things to hurt. You do not want to hurt your significant other or your spouse. It's tough to come back from. And language and words last a very long time. I'm sure we all can relate. You may have had somebody say something to you, your parents say something to you that has stuck with you for 30, 40, 50 years, and you get in a fight, you know, you get a bruise and it heals in a couple weeks. So I think that they just have to learn how to argue and communicate effectively and listen. You know, a lot of people want to be heard, but they don't want to hear anything. I need to. But I mean, I wouldn't speak freely, but I know you. I don't know who's watching this, but
that's good. No. Okay.
So yeah, we're good.
All right. So, what do you think? Do you think they're going to stay together? I think they will, not long term, but yes, through decision day. What do you think?
Just for excitement, I think Ryan's going to come on through with the foolishness and say no. I think he's going to just be like, okay. What happens. I don't know what happens the day of. I think it really depends on the 2 days before.
It does.
What happens, and if they don't go too well, then he'll just get out of there. But if it goes where he feels like maybe I should give it a shot, but I don't think it's going to last too much longer than that, because I think he just wants somebody to, like a piece of a puzzle, to just pop into his life and not give. I think he wants to gain, but not really give and bend enough for marriage.
Agree.
So
agree. He does not want to bend the knee. My Game of Thrones fans know what that means. All right.
Who put you on Game of Thrones? See, that's compromise. She did not want to watch Game of Thrones, but guess who put her up on it? Now she can't get enough of it.
Anyways, our last couple, Shawniece and Jephte. Shawniece and Jephte, they're gonna stay together, okay?
Yeah,
they have a great potential. They have work they need to do separately, though. You know, we find the recurring theme of Jephte not wanting to be pushed, and him being uncomfortable, and him wanting to leave when he gets really upset, and not really knowing how to communicate at all. We find, you know, Shawniece kind of maybe being a little too sensitive, having little control over her emotions, you know, he always says, as the, you know, woman of the house, and, you know, eventually parenthood, etc., as a mother, you end up being like the CEO, so chief emotional officer. And if you cannot take control of your emotions, then pretty much the whole house usually will follow suit, and people will mimic you. So they have a lot of work to do, learning how to fight fair. But they have, I think, a great foundation. I think that they are doing really well together. This episode was an example of self-sabotage. Like, they got into a little fight on the way to wherever they were going, because she said she wanted to take her car, but then she changed her mind. It was the perfect example of how, when you're in a stressful situation, or with decision day coming, it's like, let's find any type of way to get in the way of ourselves. If any of you guys have been in like a long distance relationship, you know how you like pick a fight when the person's leaving because it's easier for them to leave. So you just find something finds you, because you're attracting it, to get upset, so that when that person leaves, you're okay with that. You don't have to deal with your emotion. And watching this, you know, episode where they were in the car arguing about something so petty, which I'm glad they turned it around. Jephte made light of it. He's a pretty funny guy and kind of came back with it. I'm like, you know, this was kind of pointless. Like, you guys are fine. Let's not look for ways to be insecure and look to create diversions to a pretty good setup, as far as I'm concerned. So I see them lasting. I see them definitely committing to decision day, and I really hope that they last a long time. I really hope that they give each other, you know, this time to grow, because I think they're expecting something that can't come from 7 weeks, and it can't. As difficult as it is, it can't be like, this is what marriage is. No, it's not. This is what you experience marriage to be based on this experiment. Now go ahead and create what you want your marriage to be. And I hope that they can kind of be mature enough and be guided by some like solid people to help them recognize that they can kind of turn it around and really, really start fresh and create something beautiful. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you sure you don't want some water, baby? Huh?
No.
Okay. that thing got me tough. Anyway, so I think that I'm glad Jephte. Well, I'm going out of the loop here. I mean, just because I'm just kind of piggybacking off of what you were saying, but I think that he made light of it, and she wanted to stay mad. She didn't want to laugh. She didn't want to, and a lot of times that's the autopilot. That's her way of coping with things. And I like that he kind of balanced her out with that. He does it too. When he's mad, he'll get quiet as well.
Right.
But I'm glad that he pulled her out of that because it wasn't a huge thing, right? But huge things can turn into big things if you don't address them and see what's the underlying emotion under it. And marriage has that little stuff like, did you forget the milk? Like that can cause a problem if you just got to move on and you got to push through it. And what she was saying about chief emotional officer, I believe it. I teach and talk about legacy, so talk about like how to last over generations. How and a big part of it is the emotions. And so there's two CEOs in the family, and most of the time the wife or the mother is the CEO of the chief emotional officer. Sometimes it's the father, but most of the time it's the mother, and the other one is the chief executive officer. And these roles can flip flop. It's not just gender, but it normally is that. And usually the pains from families, from generations, from the children, people getting into drugs and vices and all of that stuff comes from some type of emotional pain. And they have to have somewhere to go to remedy that. So even in your relationship, you have to be able to remedy your emotions and keep them at bay unless they need to come out. Like Shawniece is a very emotional person, and she was really making a little bit too much of that situation, and and even if she recognized, come out of it. One thing, I was with some of the guys, and we were, having a cigar. A couple of guys that all got married around the same time, and somebody asked us, what's your number one thing that you learned in marriage? And we're like, man, how to argue, how to disagree on something and move past it. You still got to go to sleep with this person. You're going to be 12 inches away from this person at the end of the night, and in the morning, and the next day, and the next day. So get over it. Unless it's something brutal or not brutal as in physical. Well, that too, for some people, that's a whole other story. But unless it's something really, really deep, just forgive. You got to forgive fast too. That's another way. Yeah. Forgive the person. Everybody's not perfect. They're growing. Especially when you first get married. You're growing. They're growing. Learning how to submit to one another. Learning how to be a better man, a better husband, a better wife, a better woman. And to be interdependent, it's not easy. It is hard. It is a challenge. And you have to learn how to not be the single you and the married you. And that's where I think this whole thing kind of comes down to, is to learn how to blend. And that is a lot of give and take. So with them, I think they'll stay together. I think they do need to engage in some more counseling. I don't think they should be done after this. And I think every couple should talk to someone, because people just don't understand how important it is to learn from people that not only have been married but understand human behavior, and why we do what we do, why we act, and think about it this way, guys. That other time when they had that big fight after Vermont. Yep. If Dr. Pepper wasn't there, they might not even be married right now.
Agreed.
They were. And that's why people say, I don't need to talk to anybody. BS. Because they were in two other rooms, emotional highs, and Jephte said he was done. Right. He said it in the outtake that if decision day was yesterday, I would have been done. And the reason it brought him back is because they went to someone that knew better than they did. Yep. And
you can't see it when you're in it, so you need somebody outside.
It's like a fish, looking for water. Like they don't know that they're in it. A fish doesn't even know it's in water until you take them out the water, So that's another thing. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was, if you guys don't watch the unfiltered or uncut thing or whatever, you really have to pay attention to who you take advice from and who you listen to. In that session, Molly was talking about making the rationale, or saying the rationale that she called John disgusting because of what his behavior was. And the young lady who was hosting it, who's not a therapist, said that, if my husband did that, I probably would have called him disgusting too. Negative. Cut it out. No. There's no space for disgusting in a marriage. There's no space for words that could hurt somebody like that. I don't care what the situation is. I don't care if you were drinking. I don't care if you're upset. I don't care if you're mad. There's no space for that. Imagine if he did that to her. You monster, you disgusting monster. And when I touch you, that's like calling a woman fat or something. You just cannot do certain things. And then to validate it. So be careful who you get advice from. Don't go to your friends that's always going to validate and make you feel good. You want to go to somebody that's going to help you stay in a relationship or stay and get what you want, which is not a pat on the back for being a mean person. And Dr. Pepper was saying, hey, yeah, you can disagree, but you do not say things that hurt the other person or that tries to fight, because it causes people to go on a defensive. And when you attack, what is somebody going to do? They're going to defend themselves, and that's just human behavior. So you might want to ask questions, explain your stance, tell her how it made you feel. Maybe take a walk if you need to calm down if you're going to say something hurtful. But marriage is not about winning. I learned that early, and it's not about winning. It's because you're one. Winning is like if your right arm was beating up your left arm. You both are losing.
Agree.
So it's about mending and blending and working together.
So good job. I'm gonna close and piggyback off of him. We didn't even talk about this, so it's funny that he's saying that, because my tip was gonna be to watch who you surround yourself with and who you take advice with, and the energy. So why I called this episode for me the domino effect is, if you remember watching the beginning where the guys got together, they got there, Ryan talked about how great the vacation was, the second honeymoon. Jephte said, yeah, we, the Vermont was fun, and we did the corn maze, and yeah, it was so fun. And then they get to John, and John basically says, listen, this is not working out, we're not doing well, we're gonna be done, etc. And then they circle it back to Ryan saying all that he said and pretty much ending it with, they could take it or leave it. And then Jephte jumps in and basically says, if the decision was after the corn maze, he probably wouldn't want to stay together, and it's a way to kind of get out. They all have this bro moment of like, this is kind of our way out if we really wanted to do that. Why that's problematic is you don't want to allow, any of your friends or random people to project whatever they have going on in your life. And so subconsciously, in order to be agreeable and to be friendly, we take that on as well, to say, yeah, I know how you feel. I may show up and be perfectly happy with my husband. And this is if I was a weaker person. And if, I had dinner with a couple of friends who are complaining about their husbands, I will now try to find, a reason. Well, he slams the door loud. I'll try to find a reason to make him not so great, so that I can join the circle. You have to be careful of that, because now you start to pick up the energy of other people, and then you bring that home with you, or you bring that to your relationship with you. You need to make sure that you're talking to people who will challenge you. My closest friends will challenge me. If I'm not acting right, they will side with him. Whatever. They will side with him.
They know who they are.
Because they care about the relationship. They care about the entire union. They love me to death.
I thought it was because I paid them.
Stop.
No?
They love me to death, but they care about the union, and I do the same for them. I will tell them to knock it off in a heartbeat, because I care about their union. I care about their ultimate desires, which is to continue to be with their husbands or in their long-term relationships. So you have to be careful, and you have to be strong enough to be happy in a good situation, rather than feeling the need to kind of level down. A couple of episodes we talked about leveling up, but level down to where people are comfortable, where if somebody's like, yeah, this isn't working out, and you feel like you have to say, oh, this isn't working out either. You have to be careful, because that domino effect hits you, and while it seems like, oh, it's just trash talking out with the girls or out with the guys, you take that energy home with you. And so now you are spewing that energy into your relationship, or possibly looking for reasons to validate this thing that really never existed. So you have to really be careful about that. That's pretty much it. I think
I do got one more thing to say on that, though.
Okay.
Well, I know, wrap it up. I know, but I'm saying oh man, did you make me forget what I was gonna say? Oh, no. What you were saying about taking on other people's stuff. Sometimes it'll happen subconsciously. If you watch that episode, I don't know, it's about 3 or 4 times they were like, "Oh man, that made me wonder. That could happen to us."
Yeah.
I think one of the young ladies said it.
Yep.
Jackie. Jephte said it.
Yep.
Then the other one, Shawniece, I think, said. Everybody's like, "Oh," so that fear can kind of, fester a little bit. So you just gotta make sure that that's not what's kind of brewing under you.
Right.
And it's not just that. It's also, I'm gonna go a little far with this. It's who you hang around, but it's also what you watch, the TV, the people you hang around, reality, the music. There's a song out called, She Never Says I'm Sorry, and you might just think like Molly and think like, oh, maybe my girl's never gonna apologize or whatever. So you just want to be careful what you put into your mind and who you surround yourself with.
Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, guys. So I hope you enjoyed it. My special guest, he may or may not be back at some point. We shall see.
Vote, comment that you want me back. I'm the people's champ, baby. I'm people's choice.
Yeah, you're probably not. Anyways, all right. So if you loved it, please comment and subscribe. And I will see you next week. Let me know what your predictions are. And everybody have a good week.
Did you even tell him my name?
What's your name?
It's Edmund Lee. There we go.
Say goodnight, babe.
Good night, babe.